perfectly explains that the mystic yoga system, consisting of 8 different kinds of yoga activities, has to be performed with the aim of coming to the perfectional stage of Bhakti Yoga. It is not acceptable for one to be satisfied simply by practicing the sitting postures and thinking himself complete. By meditation, one must attain the stage of devotional service. As previously described, a yogi is advised to meditate on the form of the Lord Vishnu from point to point, from the ankles to the legs, to the knees, to the thighs, to the chest, to the neck, and in this way gradually up to the face, and then to the ornaments. There is no question of impersonal meditation. When by meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in all details one comes to the point of love of God, that is the point of Bhakti Yoga, and at that point he must actually render service to the Lord out of transcendental love. Anyone who practices yoga and comes to the point of devotional service can attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his transcendental abode. Here it is clearly stated, Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. Purusha, the living entity, goes to the Supreme Person. The Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity are qualitatively one but are defined as Purusha. The quality of Purusha exists both in the Supreme Godhead and in the living entity. Purusha means enjoyer, and the spirit of enjoyment is present both in the living entity and in the Supreme Lord. The difference is that the quality of enjoyment is not equal. The living entity cannot experience the same quantity of enjoyment as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An analogy may be made with a rich man and a poor man. The propensity for enjoyment is present in both, but the poor man cannot enjoy in the same quantity as a rich man. When the poor man dovetails his desires with those of the rich man, however, and when there is cooperation between the poor man and the rich man, or between the big and the small man, then enjoyment is shared equally. This is called Bhakti Yoga. Purusha Purusham Vrajet. When the living entity enters into the kingdom of God and cooperates with the Supreme Lord by giving him enjoyment, he enjoys the same facility or the same amount of pleasure as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the other hand, when the living entity wants to enjoy by imitating the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his desire is called Maya, and it puts him in the material atmosphere. A living entity who wants to enjoy on his personal account and not cooperate with the Supreme Lord is engaged in materialistic life. As soon as he dovetails his enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is engaged in spiritual life. An example may be cited here. The different limbs of the body cannot enjoy life independently. They must cooperate with the whole body and supply food to the stomach. In doing so, all the different parts of the body enjoy equally in cooperation with the whole body. That is the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda, simultaneously one and different. The living entity cannot enjoy life in opposition to the Supreme Lord. He has to dovetail his activities with the Lord by practicing Bhakti Yoga. It is said herein that one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead by either the yoga process or the Bhakti Yoga process. This indicates that factually there is no difference between yoga and Bhakti Yoga because the target of both is Vishnu. Modern age, however, yoga process has been manufactured which aims at something wide and impersonal. Actually, yoga means meditation in the form of Lord Vishnu. If the yoga practice is actually performed according to a standard direction, there is no difference between yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta. So, further elaboration of the perfection of spiritual advancement is being explained to Mother Devahuti by her son Lord Kapila. says a devotee who applies the science of devotion, service and mystic yoga can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person. Bhakti yogascha yogascha. Bhakti yoga and yoga both attain the Supreme Person. And Prabhupada is explaining here, is taking out this word, Purishaha Purisham Vrajet. Purushaha means a person, Purusham means a Supreme Person, Vrajet means achieved. So perfection of life is when the tiny Purusha attains the Supreme Purusha. The tiny Purusha is a Jiva and the Supreme Purusha is Krishna, God Himself. A Purusha means one who is an enjoyer, and very clearly in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna reveals that all energies are coming from Him. He is the source of everything. And basically the material energy and spiritual energy are two different kinds of energies that are working in this material world. The material energy is the 5 elements and the 3 subtle elements. And the living entity is considered to be another kind of spiritual energy. And this spiritual energy is the Jivatma. And this Jivatma is struggling, being trapped by this material energy. That is the revelation by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So here also we see that the living entity is also a Purusha, is also a person, is not simply Brahman, impersonal Brahman, but is a personal Brahman. Individual tiny persons. The Supreme Lord is a Supreme Person. And the little living entity, when he tries to enjoy him in forgetfulness of the Supreme Person, then there is Maya or material existence. And the living entity remembers his original constitutional consciousness as being part and parcel of Krishna, meant to serve Krishna, then automatically there is a liberation from this material energy. Otherwise, the living entity is in illusion, stuck to this idea that I am part of this material world, I am this material body, and impure existence continues in this material world. Every living entity's existence in this material world is impure. Existence, whether I am in ignorance or whether I am in knowledge, my existence cannot change, no? My existence cannot change. My existence is what I am. So an example is, if you take anything, you put it in different medium, you put it in water, you put it in oil, and put it in anything you want. Immerse it in anything. That stone is stone, it doesn't change. That stone's beingness is called Sat. So even now, each one of us, we living entities, we are Sat in this body. But it is immersed in Asat. So Sat means existence. And when its existence is contaminated, what is the meaning of existence being contaminated? Sense of being is something else. My sense of being is existence, is Sat. That sense of being, I think I am this body. So the sense of being is contaminated with the I am this body. So sense of being which is Sat, which is existence. So that pure existence is contaminated with the existence, false existence that I am this body. But still who is contaminated? I only am contaminated. The stone only is in the oil or in the water or whatever it is. So our real existence, we as a Purusha, as a tiny person, we are seated in this body, thinking I am this body, and consequently this body is also designed in such a way that it acts like a perfect person, complete person, with thinking, feeling, willing, everything, like in the spiritual world. And then we completely in illusion, and we exist for the body. This is a very big trap. Liberation means you exist for yourself. Yourself means I am servant of Krishna. Now we are servant of our body. Body means body, mind, system, existence. So that is the trap. So here Lord Kapila is saying that perfection of life is when the small Purusha achieves the big Purusha. Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. This doesn't mean that the living entity becomes that Purusha. But we have to achieve that Purusha, means we have to achieve by Bhakti Yoga, we have to achieve the lotus feet of that Supreme Purusha. And achieving that Supreme Purusha means achieving devotional service. Because we don't change. We just go from ignorance to knowledge. So our ignorance, we are immersed in the ignorance. Just like the stone I gave example, it is immersed in oil or immersed in water. The only difference, stone is stone, but what is covering it and influencing is different. With the stone, the stone can get washed. In the oil, it can get oily. So some superficial change in the existence happens. The same way, false existence comes into being when the material energy is covering the spirit soul. And why is it covering the spirit soul? Prabhupada is explaining here. Just like every limb of the body serves the rest of the body, and that is a perfect constitutional arrangement where the part is serving the whole, and the entire, all the parts are nourished by the system. Similarly, Krishna is a whole person. Krishna is the source of everything. This is the idea of Krishna. There is a transcendental idea, there is a transcendental concept of Krishna. He is the supreme source of everything, and He is a whole of everything, and we are part of that whole. Just like the finger is part of the whole body. So when each part fits perfectly in devotional service with the whole, then automatically there is self-realization. So self-realization is not really about knowledge. Self-realization is about acting in the position as the servant of the Lord. Now we are thinking we are this body, but realization that we are not this body, our pure existence is I am eternal servant of Krishna. And then serving the Lord in different ways. even Ashtanga yogis, they are meant to become personalists. The meditation on the Supreme Lord, when it begins, even Ashtanga yogis are supposed to start meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, then ankle of the Lord, knee of the Lord, thighs of the Lord, etc., up to the face of the Lord, then the beautiful the ornaments on the Lord. These are all the things that even Ashtanga yogi also, after he gets a glimpse of the Lord, he has to continue meditation on Vishnu. So that is also meant for awakening one's original consciousness that I am an Amsha person of the Supreme Person. I am a tiny person and he is a Supreme Person. And that Supreme Person is not somewhere far away or anything. Supreme Person is inseparable from the living entity. Right now in the material world, he is relating with us in the form of Paramatma, hidden. Without showing himself up, he is engaged in different activities which makes this material existence possible. As Paramatma is seated in everybody's heart. So Paramatma, the Lord is there, the whole is there with the part everywhere. Only the part forgets the whole. The whole is in the spirit, the complete whole is in the material world also, in the spiritual world also. According to relationship, one will have realization of this whole. That whole person is Krishna. And everything in that whole person is unlimited, everything in the tiny person is limited. My thinking, feeling, willing is limited. Krishna's thinking, feeling, willing is unlimited. My pleasure is limited by how much my senses can enjoy. Krishna's pleasure is unlimited. But there is something very significant that Prabhupada is saying here, which appears to go against common sense. Prabhupada is saying, even though we are limited, our spirit of enjoyment is there in the living entity, spirit of enjoyment is there in the Lord also. So first Prabhupada says the difference is in the quantity of enjoyment. But later Prabhupada says that when the living entity enters the kingdom of God and cooperates with the Lord, by giving him enjoyment, he enjoys the same facility or the same amount of pleasure as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So normally speaking, if you take a part has its capacity. Part has its limitation in enjoying. But when we get linked up with that is normally, with part to part. But the moment you get linked up with the Supreme Lord in pleasing the Supreme Lord, in giving enjoyment to the Supreme Lord, then we get unlimited enjoyment. Because we share the same enjoyment as that of the Lord. This is something that we do not know about it at all in the material world. We do not know what is this Yoganan Ramante Anantam. This Anantam, unlimited enjoyment, what is that? We have no idea in this material world. We have only idea of enjoyment, limited enjoyment of limited senses. But there is an experience of unlimited enjoyment, even for the living entity. That unlimited enjoyment comes when we give enjoyment to Krishna. Even now in our conditioned state, our consciousness can, if purified, can enjoy through these senses only an experience of unlimited enjoyment. Whether seeing the deities or chanting the holy name or meditation on the Lord's form whatever it may be, an experience of that, the transcendental experience which crosses the limits of anything that we have experienced in this material world through material senses, can be experienced by seeing the form of the Lord, by hearing the holy name of the Lord, by even smelling the scent offered to the Lord, prasadam. Or you can experience transcendental bliss by tasting Krishna prasadam. I think that we all know. It's a fact. Different times, the prasadam's appreciation is different. Sometimes you become so blissful, prasadam. Somehow it touches you. Not because prasadam is different, because somehow you are in good consciousness. So, otherwise you will see only the material taste. So this is something that the Mayavadis or the impersonalists have no idea, they can never understand, and that is never revealed to them. Never revealed to them. The taste, the experience in the heart of a devotee. Even devotee, when a karmi achieves something, some success in doing something, the rasa that he gets is all mundane rasa. Forget, not philosophically, even experientially it is nothing compared to a pure attempt to please Krishna by achieving something in this material world. The bliss of that is inexplicable. That also devotees have experienced, isn't it? When you go out to collect, suddenly you get a check. Big check for Krishna. It's not for you, you get for Krishna. So much bliss you get. Nothing wrong in it. It is a transcendental bliss. It's mixed, no doubt. It is mixed. We need to understand that what devotees are experiencing, the happiness in devotion service, it's not pure because they are not pure devotees. But you cannot say there is no spiritual bliss in that. Krishna's, Prabhupada and Krishna's mercy, a spiritual taste is given there. An experience is there. If somebody is a good achiever in so many things, you tell him, okay, you leave Krishna's service and go and achieve, get the same taste there. Say, I don't want to work anymore anywhere for anybody, for anything. I only want to work for Krishna. Why is that? It is not really merely philosophical understanding that he should not work for anybody. He's become addicted to serving the Lord because there is a taste in achieving for Krishna. There is a taste in doing for Krishna. So that is how our chitta gets purified. Our consciousness gets purified. The consciousness is the one who tastes experiences, whether it's a taste, a smell, or touch, or anything, success, or anything. It is a consciousness that experiences, isn't it? So the consciousness becomes purified when the purpose of the consciousness is to please the Supreme Lord. It's a very mystical process. It's an experiential process, devotional service, not merely philosophical. Philosophically, in one word, we say it's a higher taste. This higher taste doesn't mean it's a philosophical higher taste. I am part and parcel of God, I have to serve God, so I feel good, I am harmonious, I feel. Not only that, it's not only philosophical, it is not only the higher taste of chit, it is a higher taste of ananda. It is a higher taste of sat. What is the higher taste of sat? Feeling that experience that you never die, the feeling that experience of what you are. I am eternal servant of Krishna. that settlement, that feeling of completeness of being one with the Lord as His part, as His inseparable part, that eternality, that self-identification as an experience, that is Sat. When Sat is experienced, then the body is experienced, the changes in the body is experienced as simply a passing phase. There is total disidentification with the body, bodily circumstances. There is total disidentification when there is Sat Prasadam. The same way when there is Ananda, the living entity wants to give enjoyment to the Lord. And then Lord's mercy comes as Ananda, more than what he can take, what he can entitle. The quality of, the quantity itself of that enjoyment is unlimited. This is a constitutional understanding of what is pleasure. If this statement that Prabhupada is saying is taken up as an absolute statement, he enjoys the same amount of pleasure as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you take that. I mean, same amount of pleasure as the Supreme Lord. That is actually living it is constitutional hunger. Just like my stomach can take this much food, or my taste, my tongue can take this many rasgullas at a time before it becomes tasteless. Similarly, my constitutional pleasure capacity is unlimited when it is connected to Krishna's devotion service. You take this statement as the definition of what is constitutional pleasure of each living entity. Each living entity, when it is connected to Krishna and trying to please Krishna, his pleasure is unlimited. Till that instinct, deepest instinct of the soul is satisfied, the soul will always be incomplete. So in the material world, this is what we are all incomplete. Any amount of, any kinds of bits and pieces of pleasure that we get in the material world, that pleasure is of course duplicated, experientially duplicated by the arrangement of the Lord through this mechanism of body, brain, chemical and all those things. Miraculously, or it is, expertly done by the Lord to, otherwise spirit cannot experience matter at all. Spirit can experience only spirit. So the spirit experiences of touching, smelling, tasting, relationship, all these things are made possible to be experienced in the material field by the intervention of the Paramatma. So that is a reflected or a perverted reflection of the actual pleasure that the living entity is entitled to. So if we, to both things we cannot have. If we want that transcendental pleasure of giving pleasure to Krishna, that is one pleasure attitude. Another pleasure attitude is isolated pleasure for me. Isolated pleasure. That means I will take pleasure for myself. The other pleasure attitude is pleasure of giving pleasure to Krishna. This is isolated pleasure, or you can say Krishna-less pleasure. Now, Krishna-less pleasure is never a pleasure because it's an illusory pleasure. That is experienced through this mind-body system. It is not real vastu, it's not real pleasure, it's not real pleasure energy. The real pleasure energy is only in the spiritual world. There is no pleasure at all in matter. Whatever you do, you cannot milk pleasure out of material energy. Because Paramatma is there, that whole trick is there. Magic is created as if there is pleasure in this material world. There is pleasure in this body, pleasure in everything. So in the material world, if our pleasure attitude is isolated pleasure, then we are, given dog food. Just like, good food is there, a dog food is there. All the pleasures in the material world is like dog food. Real food is there in association with Krishna. So whenever we engage in sense gratification, we should understand, oh, I am going after dog food. At that very moment you are going after dog food, you are being deprived of transcendental connection with Krishna. Because without forgetting him, you cannot enjoy this. And all this understanding comes by associating with the Supreme Lord in different forms. By His mercy, then one comes to reconnect with the Supreme Lord. A living entity who wants to enjoy on his personal account and not cooperate with the Supreme Lord is engaged in materialistic life. How in illusion in the material world we see that some object, a sense object, has got pleasure in it. We see. It is an illusion. There is no sense object, no sense object has got, objectively there is no pleasure in it. The pleasure in it is supplied by your brain, by your concoction. There is no pleasure in it. By your hope, pleasure, by all those things we concoct in our system. Any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, there are a couple of psychological analyses that I was part of, and the workshops are mainly on why a person cannot get out of the breakups, or when his wife is dead, or why a person cannot come out of a relationship, even though the other person is disappeared or is moved on or died. And the next one is on why a person why a person get into the habit loop again. The rehabilitation centers, when we send, not for everyone it doesn't work out. And the main output of that is it is because of the intimacies and emotions and the hope.
Intimacy
that is missing, and the emotions that is not able to overcome, and the hope that if I do it again, or there is a 1% of chance that it may be happening again. Let's say that a person's wife is dead. After a certain amount of time, he will get over it. He accepts the truth that she cannot come back now. But whereas if a person is alive, it is very difficult for him to get over it, because there is a tinge of a hope that there is a 1% that maybe things may work out and he will be in a daydreaming stage. And today's the wonderful thing you have explained is about the dog food, that there is no pleasure in here and this particular one. How we take this particular analysis and put it in our way to give an answer for this.
The answer for that, the mind is the cause of all these things. The solution is in the mind, because mental concoction is a cause for this. And to dissolve the mental concoction, we need, mental concoction means what? Ignorance. To dissolve that, you need spiritual knowledge. Therefore, hearing the transcendental knowledge. It is not necessarily the information that is there in the transcendental knowledge. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, every day touching this Bhagavatam every day in one part of Bhagavatam, you touch the entire Bhagavatam. It's called Advaya Jnana. It is not information. Information is one layer of jnana when you hear Bhagavatam. So, unless one comes in association with this higher energy, by hearing Bhagavatam, by worshipping the deities, by worshipping Tulsi Maharani, by worshipping the spiritual master, by chanting Hare Krishna, by honoring Krishna Prasadam, taking Charanamrita, doing all those things, you come in touch with the spiritual energy. Different kinds of spiritual energies. That is the only solution, shortcut to break this attachment in this material world. To break this hope that there is enjoyment in this material world. Not by psychoanalysis. But it is guaranteed that when you get enlightened, psychoanalysis is nothing. It's a child's play for you. You can easily understand why the mind does like this, why it gets attached, where repairing can be done. Anybody who is controlled his mind to perform devotional service of the Lord, he becomes expert in these kind of matters. Even from there, if somebody is a jnani, you can explain to him A to Z why actually you are attached and how that attachment is false. We can explain to that person and take him out of it if he is interested in that knowledge, because even relatively speaking, he is an illusion. As you said, the wife is gone and died, but still he is an illusion. So how can he become detached? Or when one is alive, then one is still hoping, okay, so far my life has been like this, maybe next good times will come. Hope, 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 hope. So that's the whole, everything becomes revealed to the devotee. All these doubts vanish because he sees very clearly the fundamental blocks with which Maya plays to put you in illusion. What she extracts out of you, how she traps you, and how it is impossible for you to trap you. There are conditions which are impossible where Maya cannot trap you. The moment you have a desire, only Maya can catch you. If you have no desire, Maya cannot catch you. Your desire only for Prabhupada and Krishna, Maya cannot catch you. You hope for anything independent of Prabhupada and Krishna, Maya can catch you. If you don't have any hope other than Prabhupada and Krishna, Maya cannot catch you. Maya, Daiviyesha Gunamoyi Mama Maya Durattiya, but she cannot catch you if you don't have that. So many things are in our hands. So we have to work on that. Desire for isolated enjoyment, which is said in this verse, desire for isolated enjoyment is the weapon for Maya. Immediately she supplies, yes, I'll give you isolated enjoyment. Take it. It is all possible. Any other question?
Harishna, my question is related to isolated pleasure.
Separated pleasure.
So while doing mixed devotional service, so the pleasure the practitioner gets is a isolated pleasure or
serving Krishna is get some pleasure. That is a pleasure he experienced.
Mixed.
Mixed.
How much that pleasure Krishna wants to mix to give you that higher taste. It's mixed. We should believe that it is mixed. You should not think that it is purely material pleasure. Now I have to purify my pleasure, because we are not against pleasure. We want to take pleasure in doing for Krishna. We want to take pleasure in serving Krishna. We want to take pleasure in eating Krishna Prasadam. We want to take pleasure. We want to take pleasure. But we want to take what is my constitutional pleasure. My pleasure, the constitutional pleasure is not about getting pleasure. Constitutional pleasure is about mercifully receiving the pleasure. It is a different consciousness. In the material world, everything you try to get pleasure by lording over, grabbing it, acquiring it. In the material world, you get pleasure by acquiring it. Sense gratification by grabbing the sense object, you squeezing the sense object. That is the attitude of getting sense enjoyment in the material world. The attitude of pleasure in the spiritual world is something else. The attitude of pleasure in the spiritual world is focusing on giving pleasure to the Lord and gratefully receiving the pleasure that the Lord gives. There is appreciation of the pleasure that the Lord supplies to you. It is His mercy. So see, the pleasure attitude is different. Pleasure is there. So now, if you're doing devotional service, then because our mind-body system is conditioned to isolated pleasure seeking, right? So that is also there. But because you're doing for Krishna, every shadow has a real thing. So some little portion of the real thing only you are also getting. And eventually, when a pure devotee, he doesn't have any shadow pleasure of this material world. All his pleasures, whether he smiles, where Prabhupada smiles, walks, laughs, jokes, it is nothing of this. It is all transcendental. There's a transcendental grace in everything that Srila Prabhupada did. Or if he is angry, that also. Because there is no shadow, there is no material, it's not material rasa anywhere there. It's all spiritual rasa. Because it is to give pleasure to Krishna. Constantly, Krishna is never forgotten, and everything he does is in service of the Lord. He chastises a disciple, so much anger. From his transcendental platform, that is a rasa of anger. So, devotee who received it, it may hit him so badly, he may feel so this thing, but actually that is reaching up to the soul. That is reaching up to the soul. But he cannot differentiate. So slowly we get spiritualized in association of devotees. We spiritualized in association of devotional service. Our entire existence gets purified. Our pleasure attitude gets purified. Our knowledge gets purified. Every Satta, Chitta, and Ananda gets purified. That is the whole purpose of existence. Devotional service. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, my doubt is if means Krishna wanted us, because we desire independent pleasure, Krishna wanted us to go to this material world. Means I was so strong. But if Krishna could have thought that, okay, let this jiva quickly come back after going to this material world, so that within few births, he could have understood this world is dukhalayam ashashvatam, and quickly he could have come back to the spiritual world. But why is it is so that it goes to a condition where it becomes a nitya baddha and enmeshed with lots of complexities. So it is bound so much that the pleasure in this world is, it looks like there is no other pleasure greater than this. If because before I watched in some TV channels, even one person told that don't eat non-veg and chant Hare Krishna, but I felt like he's a fool. Because why? Because he follows that. Why he is telling that to me? Because I was already enjoying a great pleasure. So why is it so the pleasure is as good as Vaikuntha? Means if if Dukalayam Ashashvatam is realized very quickly, then quickly every living entity can go back to God.
Because Krishna does not want you to go back to the spiritual world just because here there is no pleasure. Krishna wants you to positively, lovingly engage in pleasing Him. He does not want, oh, you have realization, there is no pleasure here, now you are ready to come to spiritual world. No, 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 no. That is negative thing, sour grape philosophy. Where is love of Krishna? So I want to go back to Godhead because there is no pleasure here. No, 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 no. I want to go back to Godhead because I love you, Lord. So, the ultimate elevation to the spiritual world, that's why even Mayavadis cannot go to the spiritual world. Some completely detached from material pleasure. They cannot. Because they don't want to exercise their free will to love the Lord, to surrender to the Lord.
That is a Mayavadi attitude, Prabhu, like as you told, love is not involved, because you told when love is involved, then we never try to negate. So that kind of attitude is Maya, like Dukalayam Ashashvatam, and no love, somehow I have to get out of that, so that is Maya.
That is only preliminary for neophytes, Dukalayam Ashashvatam. To go to spiritual world, you need love of God. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.